At least you rescue me from that kind of economy. I must be honest with you.
That was tough.
That was a saver, bro. I know, that is yeah.
So, now let's continue.
I've been studying economy a lot.
No, thank you for that.
I'll side of the course of the project.
Now you're risking to run
Come in handy. Okay, let's just pray and continue. Father, we pray because we don't want to work out of our own efforts. We realize our need and our dependence of you. We pray and we ask that you will continue with us in this last session. You energize our brain cells, empower us, bless us, and remind us of the things you have taught us. And let this section or session be clear as the previous ones. In Jesus' name, we pray. Amen. Now we have entered the last phase of our religious art talk. Today we are discussing the coronavirus, the theological significance. First, I don't know. I just said that we're going to cut the part. Yeah. We looked at the medical significance of the coronavirus, and we also looked at the medical significance of the coronavirus, and briefly we looked at the sociological significance of the coronavirus, and then just now we had a discussion on the economic significance of the coronavirus, and we realized that countries that will be affected mostly by the coronavirus are developing countries, more than the developed countries, because developing countries simply don't have enough mechanisms or capacity to deal with the effects of this pandemic. And we looked at the practical tools that we as Seventh-day Adventists can arm ourselves with to rise above this storm and the aftermath of this coronavirus. At this point, we are going to look at the theological significance of this coronavirus epidemic or pandemic. Brother Mike, question number one said, which epidemic scenarios can you think of that are recorded in the Bible? Any scenarios in the Bible where you had pandemics? I believe when the Bible speaks about pandemics, it's talking about pestilences, right? It's referring to pestilences. Which instances in the Bible can you think of that are talking about pestilences? That is, historical events recorded in the Bible. While you are thinking of that, it comes to mind that if you remember, in almost every siege that has taken place in the Bible has resulted in pestilences. If you read in the book of Ezekiel chapter 14, and I think it's Jeremiah chapter 7, it speaks here about scenarios of pestilences. Now, you will recall that in ancient times, cities were not surrounded, were not like today. Cities are borderless. The only borders we are having are on the map, political borders. But there's not a fence to separate a city from another city. But in ancient times, you had cities surrounded with walls to mark the territory, like to show that, okay, this is where our city starts and this is where it ends. And then you will remember that when an enemy comes during sieges, like when an enemy comes to overcome or conquer another city, the first thing they will do, they will send what they call an ambassage in the book of Luke, an ambassador, to go and speak to the other king who's ruling the other city or the other nation. And then when the ambassador is sent, he will discuss conditions of peace with that person that they are going to meet in the field. The person who's seeking to conquer the other city, he'll make it clear that, listen, I am coming to take over. And And this is what I want from your country. I want all the trees. I want all the houses. I want the land. And then the other ambassador will take the message to the other king and say, listen, this person wants this and this and this and this. And then we'll be under their control. What do we say as a nation? And then within the council of the king, they're going to discuss that. No. We can't give this person our land and all of that stuff. We can't give over our sovereignty. That is how Nebuchadnezzar conquered Jerusalem. That is how he conquered Elam and all the other countries that are surrounding the nation of Babylon. That is how Nebuchadnezzar or Babylon became a global empire. That's how Syria became a global empire. That is how the Greeks became a global empire. That is how the Romans became a global empire. They negotiated the conditions of peace with their enemies. And upon disagreement, they said, okay, fine, you don't want to agree to what we are telling you, now we are fighting. Then they will declare war, and then they will start attacking. And then when they attack the city, it's in most cases, the fields of the city will be out. The fields, that is where the food comes from, is outside of the city, where they're outside the walls. What they will do is they will collect food during the seasons of harvest and store this food in various storehouses. And that's where they will keep the food. And depending on, basically, is to have reserve in cases of emergency. And if something happens, we are safe. So they will store food in those storehouses. I don't want to use the Zimbabwean example because it's irrelevant. But that way, like they call that in Zimbabwe Zunde. The place where they keep that food. It's called Zunde. People just collect food during the season of harvest and they keep it for like they have reserves. In case the enemy comes, we are secure. Now, the war breaks out. What they will do, they will start off. In fact, even God instructed the Israelites like, listen, when you go and fight against nations, this is what you must do. Don't go to war if you are just gotten married now. You must stay at home and entertain your wife. If you have bought land that you have done nothing on, that land, don't go to war. Take care of it. If your heart, in other words, if your heart is not right, if your heart, there are still issues that you have to sort out, you must first deal with those issues. Then you go to war. You find those examples, I think it's Deuteronomy chapter 20, where he gives those practical instructions. That is, this is how you wage war with an enemy. Just to cut this long story short. The war breaks out. Okay, the war breaks out. The first thing they will do, usually they will cut off the trees. They will use those trees to build the battering rams, which are the engines of war outside the city. That's where they will mount their artillery. Now a battering ram is this thing, like they will put a stone on a sling and then mount it on a machine, then they will swing that thing and beat the wall until the walls break. And then once they have found a breach in the walls, then they are going to enter the city and kill people that are inside the city, and then that's it, they take over the city. Now, while they are busy trying to break the walls, that's why they have to make the walls very, very, very strong, like very stable and stuff like that. So, while they are busy trying to break that, the negotiation is gone. Now they are trying to conquer, like they break the walls. It usually takes long. It's not something of a week or a month. It takes very long. So once they've broken into this, before they break into the city, the people that are inside, remember there's food inside left in store. Now they'll begin to use the reserves. They can't go to the field. If you go to the field, they get you, they kill you. So now they will eat all the food inside. When the food is finished, what is left? People. Now Ellen White writes about this in the book Great Controversy, chapter 1, the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70. The scenario that I've painted here is exactly what took place in AD 70, when the Romans destroyed the city of Jerusalem. people started eating their babies. Number one, during the siege, they ate their babies. And she even says that people ate the leather belts.
Yeah.
They're just looking for something salty, like something with that has a resemblance of food. And people will risk their lives, jump over the walls to go and find grass outside and bring over to the city. And then that's famine now. And then on the other side of pestilence, people were struck with serious diseases. The diseases that we are discussing now, the coronavirus. They will be struck by coronavirus. It's not coronavirus, I'm sorry to say it, but they will be struck by something similar to the coronavirus. And people will start dying off in thousands. In other words, they will besiege them in such a way to, in fact, they were trying to bring them to their knees, to say, surrender, give us your sovereignty, be our servant. Now, with the picture that I've painted, that's how Jerusalem was destroyed in AD 70. That's how nations have been conquered in the past. With this picture that I've painted, the Bible says in the book of Matthew 24, one of the signs of the last days is pestilences, nation rising against nation. See the combination? Famine. So all those things that were contained in a siege, the Bible predicts those things will take place. Those things will take place in the future. Now, my question is it possible that in our modern society, that the nations today as we speak are under siege?
I will provide you with the history that you have painted. If we look in the book of 1 Kings chapter 8, this is, remember, a person who was going to build a temple. It was not David, it was Solomon. Now, after the house of God was built, now there was a dedication towards that. Now, there's something that Solomon is trying to paint to us, because remember, more often when there were pestilences and so forth, it will be on the basis of disobedience.
Okay.
Or else where other nations, for instance, they will try to take the ark of the Israelites, for instance, just like the Philistines,
okay,
and they find that there were plagues that they find themselves in, because now they were having things that one can simply say they were ordained for a holy purpose. Now, when coming to the issue of First King, based on the story that you have painted, I'm looking at the key points. Everything that you've mentioned, you'll see is coming from the text itself. And the text, it will tell us if these things, or if Bible is practical or not. Now, if we go to the book of 1 Kings chapter 8, and we look at verse 37. From verse 37. It says that when you've got time, you can just read other verses.
All right.
Yes, yeah.
Just the key ones.
For the key ones, and the rest you can do that. Now, from verse 37 it says, if there be in the land one fair mind.
Okay.
This is something that you recently touched. First Kings chapter 8 from verse 37.
Okay.
If there be, secondly, pestilences.
Okay.
We will go back to the issue of Matthew 24. Now it says blasting, mildew, locust, or if there be caterpillars. Because some of these things, they will destroy the economy, especially your locust and so forth.
Yes.
Now it says, if their enemy, it comes back to the story that you have painted. I'm just looking at the key points here. I'm just following you based on what the Bible is saying.
Yes, sir.
It says, the next step, enemy besieged, because the issue of the enemy besieging, it was basically to close the supply of food.
Okay.
That was logic behind. If we surround them and they can, there's nothing that come in or go out, we know that they are done. We are done with them. So that was the principle behind it.
Sure.
Now, according to this is Solomon is informing us, should the circumstances be in that space, what are we supposed to be doing? Now it continues. It says, besiege them in the land of their cities. It continues. Whatsoever plague. Question, what is whatsoever?
The things that have been listed and the other things that are not yet listed.
Which means everything. Now, therefore, we cannot exclude COVID-19 then on the basis of the term whatsoever plague.
Okay. So COVID-19, that is coronavirus, is a plague. Okay.
Whatever plague or pestilences, I'm just looking at the principle point of view. Principle point of view. Now it says whatsoever, question again. What is whatsoever? Sickness. If this coronavirus, it has a trend of sickness, which means then it qualified to be part of the text. Now it continues by saying, there be, it says, what prayer and supplication soever be made by any man.
Okay.
Now remember, behind this was on the dedication of a temple.
Okay.
Now it continues by saying, or by all people of Israel. Which means in the context of prayer and supplication, any man or all people of Israel, which shall know every man the plague of his own heart. Now it comes back, now it starts hitting home now.
Every individual.
Every individual on his own heart. It says the plague of his heart. Which means it is more than an issue of disease there. It comes into the context of sin. More than anything else. And it says, and spread forth his hand towards this house. Which house were it being referred to? Because we said earlier, this has to do with the issue of the temple. Which means, should we find ourselves in circumstances where we find ourselves, which means the first place where we're supposed to run to, based on the text, is the temple.
Okay.
This is what Solomon